Hi, and welcome to CryptoBiography. I'm your host, Brandon Starr, and this is going to be Connections Part 10. So here we go. Let's just jump right into it. Alma spent hours with Connor, sometimes silently, sometimes chatting about the small details of his injuries and how he felt. He dozed off many times. During those moments, Alma planned what she would do next. Connor was counting on her, and frankly, her own future depended on her getting this right. She left after what would have been dinner time, and her stomach was grumbling. She called Don and asked for him to meet her for dinner. "Of course, Mrs. Rourke," he said. They met at one of her favorite restaurants, Moroccan with all the spices she loved. Having Don was partly practical. Wolf knew about Connor and may have eyes on anyone who visited him. But she also wanted his company because he was a straight talker, and she didn't want to think too much about fears and other emotions at the moment. "First, Wolf has not gone anywhere. He is in his cell still. I have confirmed this with Grant and others I know," Don said in his never-a-contraction way. "So far as personal threats from him, there are none. We are good on that score." "Yes, thank you," Alma said. "Now, I am concerned about security at the hospital, and I am beefing it up. Anyone who knows you are in relation to Mr. Rourke will be talked to, and if needed, given compensation for silence. They will be made to understand that this is to keep you safe, so that they will have a guilty feeling if they tell anyone. I'm going to try to get the records of visitations expunged, or at least made anonymous or altered. No one needs to know Mr. Rourke has a wife or her name." Alma nodded. "I will have protection and surveillance round the clock. Please let me know when you're coming to visit. We will be sweeping for anyone who might be on the lookout for someone visiting Mr. Rourke." "Perfect. And the guard situation will be improved. If I have to rent out one of their hospital rooms near Mr. Rourke to act as a guard station, I presume you will cover that cost? It would not be cheap." "I will. I will also personally handle any hassles that come our way." "Thank you, Don." "Of course, Mrs. Rourke. Do you have any other requests at this time?" "I have some projects I need to work on. It's possible I may need some of your guys to do some research for me." "Whatever you need." Alma went to work. She took great precautions, generally doubling the length of time it took to drive anywhere due to doubling back, taking unusual routes, and so on. But even more of her work was by phone and other communications. The laws had changed, and it was much more difficult to get what she wanted than it had been the last time she had gone through this process for Connor. Still, they had planned for exactly this situation. She and Connor had both cultivated contacts in many places who would now help her. The days came and went, and she progressed as best she could. She visited Connor every day, often more than once, and spent the rest of her time on her new project. The museum let her take a leave of absence, and why wouldn't they, since she did so much for them and didn't even draw a salary? But they also went beyond that, sending a remarkably beautiful painting to Connor's room that they had commissioned by one of Alma's favorite new artists. It depicted Alma and Connor together overlooking Los Angeles in an unusual and vibrantly colored style. She loved it, and Connor did too, or at least he said he did. In a couple of weeks, faster than the doctors had suggested it would happen, Connor was ready to go home, though physical therapy and even a couple of minor surgeries were still to come, along with much else. Connor had hardly needed the pain medication, which he chalked up to having a strong constitution and a general tolerance to pain. That, of course, was for the doctors. He and Alma knew that the same method which let them control the bodies they were in also gave them a high degree of control over certain things, including how much pain they felt. When Connor entered their home, he saw that the painting was already hanging on a wall in the library, not far from the entrance. "You got there fast. You got that here fast," he remarked. It wasn't intended to say anything about the painting or its placement, but rather about her efficiency and cleverness in getting it here ahead of him when he had left it in the hospital room not long before. Such feats of ingenuity were something they always admired in each other, and it had served them well over the centuries. "I have some leads," Alma started. Connor held up a hand, the one not holding the cane. "It can wait. for now, just let me enjoy being in your company in our home again. And that's where we're going to end for today. So, obviously, this one's more of a setup episode. It's always interesting to see how these stories come together. There's always parts like this which are mostly connective tissue, and I try to always include as many interesting details and bits of foreshadowing or sort of hints of what is expected to come as I can. But it was a little different to write and a little more difficult to write, I must say. I spent a lot of time like very slowly writing out bits of this before it, and even now it's a little shorter than an average one, but still it was fun to write. I enjoyed it, and more to come next week. More of the story of Connor and Alma Rourke. And you guys, if you have any comments or questions about this episode or previous episodes, CryptoBiography@gmail.com, or hit us up on Twitter or Facebook. And thank you for listening. Words and music, copyright 2019, CryptoBiography LLC, all rights reserved. Characters and events are fictional, fictionalized, or satirical.